Welcome back to Spotlight. And then I need to say, Rodney asked me to remind you that this weekend, the Lobster Fest is this weekend, the 30th, Saturday the 30th of November and Sunday the 1st of December. So, you could get the boat on Saturday morning at 11 and go up, come down in the night, 9 o'clock, and go back up 11 o'clock in the Sunday and come back Sunday night if you don't have a room and to stay overnight. So it's transportation is when you also could take a plane via Airlink. It's got a good fare going back and forth, and you can look on the tourist board website and you can see the schedule for the airline, and you could call and make reservations at your convenience. So there's lots of transportation going back and forth. You don't have to worry about that. And that's this Saturday and Sunday coming up. Dr. Dawson is in the house. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, my brother.
Yes. Peace and blessings. A lot's going on in education. The college is doing a lot. And as I was saying to Lynette, more and more now we see the college taking its rightful place in the community, providing, actually fulfilling its vision and its mission by providing courses that the community needs, that the human resource development for national development, to meet our national development goal. Talk to us about some of that vision and that thrust where you're taking the college.
Yeah, as far as and thanks very much for having us here tonight, Cromwell. And you touched on a couple of things there because they speak to really the vision and mission of the college as revised last year during an exercise in 2012, where we saw and took an opportunity to hear from some of the stakeholders of the institution, both internal to the institution as well as in the community, and really to see, well, where does HLSCC fit and what should we be doing? And as we saw it, we saw that HLSCC really should be seeking to provide quality education based on the needs of the community, grounded in solid technology as well because of the way of the world right now. And we also saw that the college should aim in its scope not only to meet local needs, but where feasible and within certain niche areas to also seek to be a regional institution of choice as well. Because already I think that there are some areas which we have some programs that have been able to develop a bit of a regional reputation, and we would want to continue to build on those strengths in building the institution as a whole. You mentioned a couple of things as relate to the community as well as the courses, and a couple of those points actually go to some of the broad strategic areas that we focus on as we develop the strategic plan. And the four areas really in terms of the strategic plan that we're looking at, one is teaching and learning, where we're looking at providing that relevant curriculum that meets the needs of this community and our students as well. We're also looking at a question of financial strength as another broad strategic area, so that obviously the challenges that we have come to know in the territory and at the college, realize that some of them are here with us to stay. So that not just HLSCC, but even the whole of higher education, because it's a phenomena around the world where we're having to say, look, things are not going to be the same. Even if you look at the great United States and the level of support at one point that they were able to put into higher education systems, that changed. And the impact of that has been institutions sort of reshaping, rebirthing themselves to meet those challenges. I think in some instances that it has had a great impact on tuition. You can see that the cost of a college education in the United States now is far greater than it was, say, even 10, 20 years ago, because the shift in the cost to provide education has shifted from the public to the private. And it always has to be that balance, Cromwell, because when you think of education, even especially in a developing country like ours, there are two main beneficiaries. It benefits the country, the collective as a whole, but it also benefits the individual. That individual now has the access, as we say, to the good life.
Okay.
And just as there are two beneficiaries, there it needs to be investment from two sides. The challenge is for us to say, well, what's the balance? Right now, the balance in the British Virgin Islands, especially as far as the local college level is concerned, well, that is heavily in favor of the collective, the government, and which is a tremendous act in the sense of, from the point of view of access, because a lot of countries struggle with access as far as globally is concerned. The Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean is very low on the totem pole as far as access to tertiary education is concerned. I would say that the British Virgin Islands, though, in fact, is among the much higher among those in the region. But
because we are providing, we are paying collectively for education for BVI Islanders at the college, and so when you come out of school, you don't have to worry about at least you're going to get a 2-year degree. Exactly,
and a number of other Caribbean islands, students are able to attend colleges for free as well, and I think that's a point that's sometimes lost. A number of when you go to what we call the national colleges, St. Vincent Community College, Grenada, T.A. Marischal Community College, a number of the colleges, students are able to attend for free. I think the difference is the access. In St. Vincent, it may be that for every one spot in that college, you may have 10 students who are trying to get there. And only
so
one can get it.
It's more competitive.
It's more competitive. So there are pluses and minuses on both sides. It means then that chances are that in some ways the performance of those students in St. Vincent can actually be higher, actually be higher than some of our students, because it was competitive to get in the gate to begin with. So it was only the best of the best were getting the opportunity to get in there. And whereas for us, it's a greater access. It's not as competitive, but it's more opportunity. And I can't see, I can't shake my head at more opportunity, because that more opportunity means that it's going to still raise the level of everyone in our society. So we will try to, with the greater access, because one of the challenges with the greater access will be, the greater access, is that going to mean less in quality? And so that we at the college, we are trying to ensure regular program reviews focused on student learning outcomes and how they can be measured to ensure that we are able to keep a certain standards.
Well, certainly, the standard of education in the HLSCC has already improved by the mere fact that we are going through an accreditation process.
I would tend to agree. I would tend to say that.
And that's a really big event. I don't know how many people realize how big a deal that is.
It is huge, because also it's a huge impact on the culture of the institution. And the college, don't get me wrong, was doing a lot of good and positive things for many years. I mean, I myself have worked at the college since 1992. And I mean, I've seen in even those first 10, 12 years of the college, where the colleges from the other Eastern Caribbean institutions were looking at us to say, what's an example of a good practice? What's a good example of good things happening within a community college as to how we should operate these colleges? As a number of the colleges move from government departments to statutory bodies, a number of them visited our college here to see, what is the way to go? So again, HLSCC, I would say, is in a sense leading the way, because the fact that we've applied for accreditation to a major U.S. regional accrediting body is certainly something that is unique among the Eastern Caribbean, Caribbean colleges, really. You'd find that a number of those countries, though, have since then started accreditation bodies, and that's good. I think that it will help with their quality. But I think no one can doubt that a lot of what we see as the foundations and pillars and good standards of higher education has come from the United States. So that when we apply to a U.S. regional accrediting body, we're really going towards the cutting edge of what is expected of colleges and universities as far as improving those institutions is concerned.
And we've always had, as a country, we've always had affinity to the United States through, of course, the media connection, and seeing their culture projected on their mass media apparatus in the country. And so most of our students, although many are going to the UK now, but most have been going to the US for education. Certainly with our accreditation being a US accreditation, it will make a seamless transition from HNSCC to into any university in the United States, which is really a core important accomplishment. And we already met the standards for acceptance as a candidate. And we are going through the assessment. So bring us a little up to date on where we are and how soon can we expect to be accredited.
Okay. So as you, and I would mention, as you said, in terms of where our students go, because I recently returned from a trip to the United States, and one of the things that I did while there was to visit Syracuse University in New York, one of the quality schools in the United States, and we signed an articulation agreement with them, so that will facilitate the transfer of our students to those institutions, because we want to make sure that our students have access to a broad range of institutions. There are various types of institutions in the United States, and our students oftentimes make the choice based on proximity and weather.
Yes.
So Florida is a big winner as far as the places that our students tend to transfer to. But while there are a lot of good schools in Florida, some of the upper echelon schools are located in other parts of the state. So we also want to make sure that our students have access to those as well.
When you're talking about places like Syracuse and St. John's University in New York, you're talking about some of the better schools in New York. Those are private schools as opposed to city schools.
Yeah.
And certainly our students getting education from there, it really is an asset to the territory.
Yeah,
so,
and certainly because when you oftentimes depend on how competitive area you're in, a lot of times you are up against graduates from the best schools.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that we are equally well prepared.
Yeah. Now you earlier talk about meeting the needs of the community as your vision and your mission mandates. So we've been developing several short courses that speaks to what the community needs in terms of human resources. Talk to us about some of those short courses and how available are they and how can we take advantage of those opportunities.
Okay, so one of the things that we've done, we've developed a unit called the Center for Professional Development and Community Education, and that's the group that's charged with whether it might be related to the skills that one might need in the workplace, but also to even things that might relate to enrichment, the things that you just want to learn to do. As Christmas is coming, people, can I know how to make some tarts or whatever, but more so on that would be things along the line, the various QuickBooks, Microsoft Excel, things that we have even ventured now into cosmetics, hair care, nail care, business communication, various aspects of the culinary arts, cooking with wines, introduction to renewable energy generation and photovoltaic systems. So it's a broad range of courses that we believe that will be meeting the needs of individuals within the community. So these are not the courses that would say take a 2-year associate degree or so. Some of them would vary in length. Some of them might be, a number of them are set up to take place on the weekend, so it may be over 3 or 4 consecutive weekends. Some of them would be taking place over the course of 5 or 6 months, depending on the in-depth nature of the content and the skills to be mastered. But clearly, I think that the world, and certainly our community, has realized that the world is so fast changing that there's no one who can simply say that I have learned it and I'm going to sit on that for the rest of my life. Life just would not be fulfilling if you chose to live like that.
And you could hear from the courses that those are skill enhancement courses. A lot of them for people who are in a profession already and perhaps need to be on the cutting edge of technology and of information in their field. And certainly the college is right there to provide that extra knowledge base and skill base for those people in the community.
Yeah.
Where you go?
I was going to say, and even so with the courses that we have of longer duration, that might be certificate courses or associate degree courses, the way that we're trying to make sure that we are relevant with that is through the use of advisory committees where we draw on persons from the industry, as well as a study that we're trying to conduct relative to labor markets, right? One of the challenges that, a lot of persons lament here in the territory, the lack of statistics,
Yes.
to really know how to make decisions relative to courses and so on. So we're going to try to lead the way and partner with, collaborate with other agencies in the territory so that we can develop that information that would be useful to all of us as far as decision making is concerned. Just today, actually, or Planning and Institutional Effectiveness Unit, one of the things that we was charging them with was to find out the number of persons or students in each grade cohort in the territory, and that's an important predictor for us, because we would want to know, how many students do we expect will graduate in 2016 or 2017? Is it one nice level flowing thing, or is it that there are 600 students in class 4, but for some reason there's 800 students in class 3? So it means that if our system is not prepared to deal with such a bump in growth, I refer to that to say, just on a larger and longer scale, for instance, the baby boomer in the United States, that was, an expansion in the population. So at every phase in life that segment of the population goes through, all systems had to prepare to meet the needs of those individuals.
And you have to keep managing that data to make decisions.
And you knew that they were coming because you had the data to know, well, guess what? There were 10 million spaces in geriatric homes, and in 2 years you're gonna need 20.
Right.
So we are
same thing with education.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're trying our best to try to gather the information that's needed to help us to inform our decisions.
And we know now too that a lot of the community services that the college is providing, the courses, is all part of our accreditation process and assessment of how we are actually serving the needs of the community. So we've met the standards for candidacy. And how far away we now from accreditation?
So we met the standards for candidacy in 2012, and at that time they then advised us that we would have essentially 3 years at minimum to become accredited. I wouldn't, 3 years not the maximum. So the agreed time that we said we would aim for a team visit would be 2015. So the process that would have happened at the college, there are 14 accreditation standards by the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, and I would even go as far as to say that by achieving candidacy status, you're kind of in the club. Yeah. Because prior to that, we could not come on TV and talk about the process at all. That was not allowed by the Middle States Commission. But once you're a candidate, you can post that you're a candidate on the website. You can use some of their data information in your publicity, and you can certainly come and speak about it openly here on a station such as this. So in 2015 is when we're expecting the team. So in the process, we have organized ourselves into various groups looking at various standards at the college, assessing ourselves based on the observations of the team members, the review of records and documents at the college, and in some instances they have to go and try to get information. So it may involve more surveys, more investigation, in order to give a sense of what is the status of the college relative to these standards of excellence. With the accreditation process, sometimes people think of it and see it as something that this body somewhere has set and said, well, you must do X, Y, Z. The standards are guidelines, in my opinion. And really, when you look at the entire process, it's an improvement process. And the essential question that they're saying is, do you know what you want to do? Do you know what you want to do? They still would ask the question and say, well, based on what you say you want to do, is this a mission that's consistent with higher education? If it's something that's not consistent with higher education, they would say, well, look, it seems like you're saying you're one thing, but you're really something else. Do you know what you want to do? How did you come to know what you want to do? Did you have a clear process in determining what your standards are from the level of the mission, from the level of the programs, from the level of what's happening in each course, from the level of the experiences that you want your students to have outside of the classroom? Do you know what you want to do? And if you know what you want to do, tell us a bit about your processes about how you plan to get there.
What's your strategic plan?
What's your strategic plan? And then if you can tell us about the processes, can you also tell us about how do you know when you've arrived? The assessment, the assessment to say, in fact, well,
you have achieved these standards.
You've achieved these standards. You set these goals as far as these programs. You said that the learning outcomes for persons who finish the computer studies degree, those persons should be able to do X, Y, Z. Do you have a way of measuring to ensure that those are the particular skills that these students have obtained? And we need to communicate that too. To the public as well.
Yeah. What does and I want to get on to some of the other general topics of education and before we run out of time, but I think we need to understand what accredited H. Lively South Community College means to the Virgin Islands.
My answer might be a little bit surprising, in the sense that I think that when people think of accreditation in the wider community, the thing that they think of, well, we have arrived, we have met a standard, and we could put a brand on our chest that we couldn't put the day before. And that is true, because that opens the doors to better collaborations with other institutions, better student exchanges, and even within our own market, they say a prophet without honor in his own country. Yeah. If somebody from outside says that you're good, then all of a sudden I believe that people inside will think
you're good.
You're good.
Yeah.
But from the very outset, I've seen it entirely as an improvement process.
Yeah.
As entirely the framework that is set up by the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, and indeed on the various other major regional accrediting bodies in the states, is a framework that causes you to look at a college in its entirety. I mentioned earlier that the college was doing a number of positive things, but we were, of these 14 trees that might be accreditation, we might have been climbing up 7 of them, and doing well climbing up 7 of them. But now the process now is saying, look, you need to look at the big picture, that an excellent institution must ensure that it's covering and looking at all these various aspects. It must not only be looking at course development and program development, it must be looking at faculty development. It must be looking at faculty professional development. It's looking at governance at the level of the board.
Management
it must be
structure.
looking at management structures, looking at financial structures, must be looking at evaluating student learning outcomes, must be looking at whether in fact money spent at a college is spent on our core processes, or are we using money on things that we shouldn't be using. So it's a very broad framework, and I believe that it has caused us to look at things at the college in a way that we had not, and if we hadn't entered this process, we would not have looked at it.
So
and
the process itself has improved the college tremendously.
Exactly, exactly. Because right on the path, there was learning on the path. There is learning on the path. There's change on the path. There's cultural change at the institution on the path to accreditation. So while we do want to be, of course, ensure that we are accredited, 2015, we would have already won, in terms of the things that would have changed at the institution based on this process.
And certainly, along with the pride of having an accredited college and the ease of which our students are going to be able to now assimilate into other colleges with our credit transfers and recognition of the value of the education that we are given, certainly it means the world to us as a country and as our students progress in the world, having come from accredited H. Lively South Community College.
Exactly. I mean, I would those say at the same time that we right now do have a good record of our students being able to transfer, but it would only be enhanced. So it's certainly a very positive thing.
Yes, we're going to take a break for a word from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the issues facing us and generally in education. Of course, we've had a few days ago, I think sometime last week, where some students were expelled from the high school. We've had some challenges with our students coming into the college and needing certain levels of remediation in order to fit into the core subjects in the college. We're having some challenges in the territory with education, generally trying to raise the standards, trying to get all our schools accredited. We're going to come back and talk about perhaps some of the causes of some of those things and how we could perhaps deal with some of those issues that are facing us in the general spectrum of education in the territory. Keep it locked right at the Spotlight. We're going to be right back just a few minutes.
Spotlight is brought to you by Tortola Concrete Limited, Clarence Thomas Limited, and H. Lavity Stout Community College.
Welcome back to Spotlight. We're having an interesting conversation with Dr. Kyle Dawson, president of H. Lavity Stout Community College. Lots going on in the college. College is moving fast, improving. It's going to be the 21st year, I think, of college existence. And certainly we've made some significant strides. There's a lot going on, Dr. Dawson, in education. We've had some challenges, some children expelled a few days back. And there's a lot of debate about whether the punishment was good and should we expel them, and what do we have to help them along the way. Because when you do that, you put young people at risk of becoming a foul of the law and non-productive citizens in the community. So that's was a challenge. But I looking at it from my perspective, I don't see how we are really addressing some of the core issues. And we keep saying that the parents need to prepare the children better for school and discipline the children and train them correctly and so on. And my question has always been, do we have that capacity as parents? What your perspective on how we addressing some of these issues?
Interestingly, I was in a forum where some of these issues were addressed, and we certainly did not come up to a unanimous position. My position was somewhat different. And I really feel that the parents have a strong responsibility for their children and what happens to them. But I'm also feeling that ultimately that the collective, that we are all going to be affected.
The whole society.
The whole society. and that as far as the society is concerned, we are bound together by certain things. We contribute some money to a thing we call a state or a government, and as a result of that, we place some expectations on them. I think that there are other organizations in our communities too that might have to do more than because we have right now, you gotta realize, Cromwell, that we have a living thing, called the economy. And that economy calls for a certain amount of input as far as labor is concerned. And that labor is rewarded at different levels. You have some person's labor based on their education and the sector that they're in is rewarded at a very high level. So that those persons are able to say, well, I'll go to work, I'll work from 9 to 5 or a longer day, 8 to 6 or whatever, and I'm going to still have time to come home and attend to the need of my children. Then I probably have weekends when I can also assist with them. But there's also some labor in our society that's rewarded at a lower level. And in order to survive in this high cost of living society, you find that there are some persons now who cannot work, don't have the skill level to demand a level of pay on a 9 to 5 job. They now must find themselves working another job as well. And we have to also realize that in this community, because of the demands of the economy, we required labor to come in. And when you require labor to come in, you have now broken the family cycle. The cycle that we were aware of, where when I came home from school, if my mother wasn't there, my grandmother probably was there. So on the weekends, if my parents had to go someplace, they could take me to my grandmother's house. So there was always a level of supervision available, right? Whether it's your own grandmother or an aunt or something. Whereas now, because of the migrant labor, you have young children, but they're disconnected from that wider family support. So that you're really experiencing, we are experiencing a number of children in our community who really have had, you could say, one leg taken out from the stool that they should be resting on as far as their foundation and development is concerned. So if that is the case, that the family support structure that we knew is not
It's no longer
fully
there.
available, then the question is to say, well, what should we do? Some would say, well, the parents shouldn't work more than one job. They should stay home and read their children. But I'm saying that
But
there are
they
some
can't-
jobs that there are a lot of
some
jobs.
parents can't do that.
I think a lot of people in the British Virgin Islands fail to realize how many people are working for $4 an hour. We don't like to think about it, but a lot of us know it. Some of us are business people, and that's what we pay. So we ought to know it. And we really need to say, well, okay, how far is that going to take you? So when I hear people, and I'm not saying that there aren't some parents who work for the extra, maybe for the bling. And sometimes even their children, in terms of trying to be accepted, put pressure on them to get the things that aren't most necessary, but just to feel accepted. And I even can understand the parents who succumb to that kind of a pressure. But there are people who must do that in order to survive in our community. So my question then is, what are we going to do? Are we just going to sit and blame them? I'm not looking for a cop-out for them, but I'm saying that we must have systems in place.
This is a reality that exists.
So we now must come up, even if you want to call it an artificial leg under the stool, to help to lift those children, because they deserve a good opportunity in life. So whether it is, and I'm not talking about some of these things are not being done, I'm saying that there are certain programs that the schools put on. I really would like to see more churches put on after school evening programs. I really would like to see that happening, because it's not a state-run thing, it's a voluntary thing. And as I said, not necessarily to say to preach your doctrine to those children while they're there, but to give them the support that they need, just to help them to develop,
to help with training, with etiquette, to help
develop songs, values, and discipline.
Yeah.
So I think that those are the things that we would have to do. Now, as far as our education system is concerned, I think that there are a number of ways that one goes about improving an education system. And I applaud the efforts of those in the department and so on, the minister and whoever, trying the various things. And, I'll emphasize some of the things that they perhaps have been talking about. That the question of early childhood education, for instance, has been shown to have a seriously upward spiraling effect as far as the eventual success of students in the education system. It's a challenge for us, because I think that the realization is there that this is what should be done. But the question is, are we in a position, do we feel that we can, again, as a collective, pay for this? When you look at the preschool system here in the and I call it system, I say that loosely, because there are so many varying standards. You have some schools which are simply daycare, the preschools, some are simply daycare, some places to keep your children. And then you have some schools that go after a fairly aggressive curriculum. Sometimes that curriculum is even too aggressive in terms of what educational psychologists have told us about what students are able to learn at particular age standards. Sometimes that curriculum is, in fact, I've seen where that has been too aggressive in some settings. But the question of, will we as a community place so high a value on the impact, the anticipated impact of a solid early childhood education, to be able to support that? Because I really don't believe the systems as they are right now are able to support it for themselves. That a lot of the individuals, the businesses that are in that, are not in a position to say they're going to sponsor their staff to be trained at the appropriate levels. The staff themselves oftentimes not making enough to say that they're going to have the time or the funds to do it. But if we say in our national interest that we are a nation at risk if this is not done, then
we have to find ways.
we have to find a way to do it.
It's been proven now through research, scientific research, that between birth and 5 to 7 years old the most important stage of development for a human's life. And it seems to me that what we are doing is we are putting the least educated in the most important roles. And so you're not getting that early childhood foundation. And as you mentioned, indicated, we are warehousing our children at 3 months old in daycare centers that are not providing any real scientific educational resources at that stage of development. And there are no rules and regulations governing those structures and those institutions to make sure that there's a certain standard and that standard is being lived up to. And so we having those challenges. Then the other challenge that you mentioned is the one where we keep blaming parents. Now, you talk about the economic issue with parents having to go to work to 2 jobs. But there's also the other social issue where you have younger and younger persons having children and don't have the ability, don't know anything about raising children.
Yeah.
And we are under the impression that, this is what my mother used to do to me, and I turned out okay, and so I could do the same thing to my child. And so the question for me now is whether, as the collective, the state, the government, do we say we are going to have to take more responsibility as a society for all of the children. So if we can't do it ourselves, if the community can't raise the children like how it used to when we were growing up, then should the community, the state community, the community as a state, then help us to raise the children by providing parenting in the schools, providing early childhood education at the standard that it should be at in the daycare centers and preschool, and all the way through up to the tertiary institutions.
Yeah, and these are big questions, Cromwell. These are
because certainly, and forgive me for cutting you, but certainly the incidents that we saw the other day with the children fighting and being expelled and the relation, the disrespect for the principal, the disrespect for the school teachers and other students, is a manifestation of a deeper cause of the early childhood development, of the parenting or the lack of parenting in the homes, and so
conflict
on. Conflict resolutions, anger management, attention disorders. And we need to take all these things into account and perhaps mitigate some of the challenges when they get to that stage. But certainly we need to be looking at some kind of preventative measures at the birth stage.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, you can look at the differences between primary school and high school. And at primary school, you don't always see certain things being acted out just because the teachers are, the disparity in age, size, and so on between the teachers and the children allow your physical dominance to exercise a level of control. But then you still have, as a teacher within that system, to see, well, what are the marks are we seeing of the students' interaction?
What are the indicators?
What are the indicators so that when they reach to a stage where they're not so physically intimidated by the adult presence, that they will be acted out, they will feel like comfortable to act out certain things in another way.
And we could address those issues at that early stage.
That at an early stage. You know, there have been schools of thought relative to the higher education system in the BVI, for instance, whether in fact we should have the one high school, whether we should have junior high schools, whether we should seek to have a number of high schools that are more, you could say, zone based. You know, that there's one in the western end, there's one in town, there's one in eastern, and to see, well, if there would be a greater sense of ownership on the part of the community, that ownership that exists not as much as when I was growing up, but still exists to an extent with the primary schools in the various areas. to see if those might be the factors that help to have the community, even without the big arm of the state, but have the community be involved in guiding our children in that high school process. Community businesses, community individuals, community churches, and so on, if it's located in a geographic area that people feel a sense that this is mine. You know, so I think that these are all ideas that we have to consider as looking at, well, what will be the way for us to get ourselves out of this mess that we're in?
I think we need to look at our child rearing capacity. You know, do we have the skills to parent our children in this particular time with the modern technology and everything that's all the information that's coming down from the international community to our children, all the things we've seen on television, all the things, the games, all the things that we're interacting with.
Yeah.
Do we have the psychological capacity to manage our children as they grow and growing faster than we are able to grow ourselves?
And how when we are trying to develop this capacity, and as you say, when we stand to preach, how do we ensure that it's not only the choir that's listening? Because when you have these parenting workshops, sometimes you find husbands and wives, you find people who we might quote unquote consider to be good parents, attending, trying to still develop their skills, whereas some of the persons who we might feel needed might be working on that other job and can't come. So how do we reach these individuals to ensure that they get the skills that are, and is there a requirement on the part of the state when we're talking about punishing the children, expelling the children, suspending the children? Is that the answer, or is it a mandatory requirement on some part of the parent to attend sessions that might improve the way that they're able to deal and manage with their children?
And even the rehabilitation process for those children, first of all, the identification of the challenges that they're having, you know, to help them mitigate the challenges before they become very manifest in the way they did it the other day, and reform and rehabilitation of those children, should they act out in those in that manner, to bring them back and make them productive citizens or productive students in the education environment, and not have to pay for expanded jails and incarceration and facilities at a later stage when they become criminals and social misfits. So it's a big debate. I think that a big debate that we need to begin to have and start looking at the root causes and how to mitigate the challenges that we see developing in our education system.
You know, when a child is about to enter the school system, public school system, they are required to do certain things. They have to bring their board paper. There are various steps that you have to take. Otherwise, your child can't be registered, Cromwell. And then if your child is registered, they can actually come and get you because you have a child of a certain age that's not in school. What about another requirement that says that in order for your child to register to begin primary school, you must attend a 1-day or 2-day parenting workshop? And I'm looking at this. What are the strategic intervention points that we can say, because if you left you to volunteer to come, you're not going to come. But in order for you to access a service of the state, in this case the education of your children, we say this is a requirement.
Yes.
This is a requirement, and perhaps that's one of the ways that we need to look at it as well.
Yeah. Too bad. We're under the 30 clock. We got to go. But certainly, I think we've raised quite a few issues, and and I think the level of debate and discussion about this particular issue in education need to continue, and we need to start looking at dealing with the root causes of these challenges as opposed to putting band-aids on an open wound.
Indeed.
It's good to see you.
Always.
Yes, man.
Thanks very much for having us here.
Yes.
Having me here tonight.
Yes. Thank you for coming on short notice as well. Spotlight, yes, Spotlight next week. Spotlight will be we're talking about building support for healthy communities. We have a person that's coming in from abroad, Jim Dyer. He'll be here to discuss how to build support for healthy communities. And of course, we know that 47% of us have one chronic disease or another, and the Ministry of Health and Social Development, of course, has developed a national strategy for the prevention of non-communicable chronic diseases, diabetes, cancers, heart conditions, and the rest. And certainly it's a tremendous burden on our funding for health, that the chronic diseases, and we need to really engage communities, build strong capacity and support for communities to help us to reduce the causes and the incidences of non-communicable chronic diseases. Mouthful for me to say. And certainly next week we're going to have a gentleman here talking about building that capacity in the community and building support. Spotlight is seen Tuesdays, of course, at 8 p.m. and rebroadcast Sundays at 2:30 here on JTV Channel 55. You could see us live at jtvlive.net. You could also go and check out all the spotlights you've missed, any parts you've missed. If you want to review the whole thing again for education purposes and research, you can certainly call up JTV Spotlight on jtvlive.net. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your words of encouragement. Continue to email me at jtvspotlight@yahoo.com. I'm Edjuenka, reminding you that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.